Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we are tackling one of the most fiercely debated topics in all of personal finance, especially if you feel like you're maybe getting a bit of a late start to the investing game. We're talking about the ultimate showdown, Roth versus traditional retirement accounts. I am absolutely thrilled to unpack this with you guys, because the math we're about to look at is going to change everything you thought you knew about saving for retirement.
Now, if you've spent any time at all researching retirement accounts, you've undoubtedly heard some version of this exact quote. It's the standard, blanket advice that financial gurus just love to hand out. And hey, the logic seems pretty sound on the surface, right? If you're a middle earner, you're likely in a higher tax bracket right now, so you should absolutely take the upfront tax deduction of a traditional account. Makes sense.
But here's the thing about generic advice. It's generic. To see why this completely falls apart in the real world, we're going to follow an incredible case study from a creator named Rachel. She's a 44-year-old late starter living in South Florida, and she followed that exact middle earner advice for 2 straight years. She dutifully chased those tax deductions right up until she decided to sit down, pull out her own actual tax return, and, well, check the math for herself.
The advice that fails here. So, let's dive into this. The fundamental flaw in most financial guidance is that it's built entirely on assumptions. People are making these massive, decades-long decisions based on generic brackets written for a hypothetical person who doesn't actually exist. Take Rachel, for example. Here's the number that started her whole journey: $94,600. That's her gross household income, made up of a $73,000 salary and about $21,000 from a part-time job. Looking at that number, she reasonably assumed she was a classic middle earner, sitting firmly in the 22% tax bracket. Actually, let's hit the pause button for just a second. Do you know your marginal tax rate right now? And no, I don't mean your salary, and I definitely don't mean the size of your tax refund. I'm talking about the exact percentage your next earned dollar will be taxed at after all your deductions are taken out. Most people literally cannot answer this, yet it is the single most important number when you're choosing between Roth and traditional.
Section 2. Your true marginal tax bracket.
To find those true numbers, we've got to strip away all the assumptions and find the undeniable mathematical truth hiding behind your gross income. Think about how the tax system actually works. It's like a waterfall. The government doesn't just look at your gross income and slap a flat percentage on it. No, your income is reduced step by step. First by your pre-tax contributions, then by your standard deduction, and only then do we finally arrive at your actual taxable income.
Let's look at Rachel's specific waterfall. She starts that top number, $94,600. But watch what happens as the water flows down. She subtracts her traditional 401k contributions, then her health savings account contributions, dropping her adjusted gross income to $83,740. But here is the real game changer. She files as head of household. That gives her a massive $24,000 standard deduction, so her actual final taxable income plummets to just $59,590.
Okay, so what does that actually mean for her tax bracket? Well, the first $17,000 or so is taxed at just 10%, and the remaining $41,000 is taxed at 12%. And that's it. Her effective tax rate is only 7.2%. She lands firmly in the 12% marginal bracket, and get this, she has nearly $8,000 of room left before she'd ever even touch that 22% bracket she thought she was stuck in.
Just look at the stark contrast between expectation and reality here. The generic advice she followed was written for someone paying over $9,500 in taxes at a 22% rate, but her reality, a 12% rate with a tax bill of about $6,700. Because her actual bracket is so low, that prized $6,500 401k deduction she'd been chasing so hard, it was only saving her 12 cents on the dollar. We're talking a measly $66 a month, hardly the massive financial windfall she was promised, right?
Which brings me to a really crucial question for you. Has any employer or HR rep or financial advisor ever actually run these specific numbers for you? Or did they just sort of glance at your salary and tell you which button to press on the portal? Because if you're deciding your financial future on vibes rather than verified math, you might be making a huge mistake.
Section 3. The one question that matters.
Here's the secret. Once you know your true marginal tax bracket, this entire Roth versus traditional war reduces to a single rule of elementary school math, the commutative property of multiplication. Basically, changing the order of the numbers you're multiplying does not change the final product. In investing terms, what's really interesting about this slide is that if your tax rate is identical now and in retirement, traditional and Roth accounts will produce identical results, not similar results, exactly identical.
Don't believe me? Let's trace the actual dollars to prove it. Take $10,000 over 20 years at a 7% return, assuming you stay in that 12% tax bracket. On the traditional side,
All $10,000 goes in, it grows to over $38,000, and then you pay the 12% tax at the end. You're left with $34,053.22. Now on the Roth side, you pay the 12% tax up front, you invest the remaining $8,800, let it grow, and take it out totally tax-free. The final amount? $34,053.22. Yep, zero. The mathematical difference between these two choices, if your tax rates do not change, is exactly $0. To the very penny. So the only question that actually matters is this. Will your tax bracket be higher today or higher when you withdraw?
Section 4. How to break the tie.
Okay, but what if you run your numbers, just like Rachel did, and you find out that your rate in retirement will likely be exactly the same 12% that it is today? The math is a wash. Well, to break the tie, we have to look at the behavioral and structural perks. Rachel ultimately chose Roth for 3 main reasons. First, Roth accounts have no required minimum distributions, meaning the government can't force you to pull your money out on their schedule. Second, you can withdraw your Roth contributions, not the growth, but what you put in, at any time without penalty, which is incredible flexibility. And finally, locking in a historically low 12% tax rate today, that acts as seriously cheap insurance against future tax code changes.
So based on everything we've just uncovered about true marginal rates and these pretty powerful tiebreakers, where do you stand? Are you team traditional, chasing that upfront deduction? Are you team Roth, locking in your rates right now? Or maybe you're team both, trying to build a flexible tax strategy for the future.
Section 5. Check your own numbers first. Now, once Rachel understood her true marginal tax bracket, she didn't just sit on that information. She completely restructured her whole financial approach. Because her 12% bracket made a tax deduction basically useless to her, she shifted her employer 401k deferrals straight to the Roth option. She fully funded her Roth IRA at $7,500. But equally impressive, she directed a massive $21,600 a year straight at her student loan principal, rapidly crushing her remaining debt down to $35,800.
And honestly, this is the most vital takeaway of the entire explainer. While the Roth versus traditional debate is super fascinating, the undisputed hero of Rachel's story is not the account type she picked. It's the fact that she was aggressively saving 37.7% of her income. At the end of the day, a $0 mathematical difference between account types completely pales in comparison to the incredible wealth-building power of a sky-high savings rate.
Rachel actually summarized her entire journey with this brilliant piece of advice. She said, don't optimize the button until you've checked the number under it. Seriously, guys, do not make multi-decade financial decisions based on random internet rules of thumb. Pull your tax return, do your own math, and verify the assumptions before you click enroll. So, I'm going to leave you with this final challenge. Before your next paycheck hits, before you make your very next contribution, are you willing to do the math? What is the real marginal tax rate hiding under your retirement button? Go find out and take control of your financial future. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.